Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Today's lesson is going to be on order of operations. Before you watch this video, I would make sure to get the notes from your Teams page. So print them out because we're actually going to be writing on the page. So if you get it out ahead of time, you'll be able to use it for this instructional video. Let's go ahead and go to share screen. So right now you should be seeing the first page of your order of operations notes. So order of operations, if we go back to what you guys have known in previous years, you probably are familiar with the phrase PEMDAS. Now, we have some misconceptions sometimes with PEMDAS, so we're going to review that right now to make sure that we understand the details. So PEMDAS stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Now this helps us remember the order of operations, but we can't just stick to the letters as we see it. So P stands for parentheses. Well, this can be all grouping symbols. And when I say grouping symbols, I mean brackets. Brackets could be on there too. So not just parentheses, but we could use brackets as well. Now, if we have more than one layer, we have to go as far to the inside as possible. A fraction bar also can serve as a grouping symbol if it puts things on top and bottom, because then I need to clean those things up first. Now, when we're talking about exponents for the next one in our order of operations, we can have exponents that is to the second power or to the third power. But the opposite of an exponent, and this is something we're going to work with a lot more this year, is a square root symbol. A square root symbol also happens at this particular step. Now what's important is the opposite of an exponent, the opposite of squared, is a square root, which is why it happens at the same time. Now this next step here, the multiplication through subtraction, this is important because multiplication does not necessarily happen before division. Multiplication and division happen at the same time. You're just going to go whichever one comes first from left to right. So if division happens to appear before multiplication in a problem, you'll do it first. They happen at the same time from left to right. The same is also true with addition and subtraction. So whichever one comes first from left to right. Now there's an important piece here for both of them. Remember your integer rules. So all the rules we have talked about still come into play when we are dealing with multiplication and division. One negative, it's negative. Two negatives, it's positive. And if it's addition and subtraction, we look at which team has more. So if it's subtraction, we look for the winning team. If it's addition, they're on the same team, so they'll work together. Now, most of you already know the order of operations. The key is the little details, and you're going to have to pay very close attention to those little details. So let's take a look then at a couple of examples here. The first example I have is -6 plus 5 in parentheses times 7. Well, if I go back, and I'll bring these up here, if I look at my order of operations, I have parentheses. So I'm going to do what's in parentheses first. What's in parentheses is -6 plus 5. Well, this is integers. They're different signs. So I will subtract and keep the sign of the larger number, and I get -1 for what's in parentheses, and then I'm just going to bring everything down. One of the most important things you can do when we're doing order of operations is think like an algebra thinker. Do one step, bring it all down. You don't want to do too much in your head because that's where careless mistakes come in. Well, now I have -1 still in parentheses times 7, and this is multiplication because the number is touching the parentheses. So again, integers. I'm going to multiply with one negative, so the answer is negative. And I get -7 for that final answer. So let's go ahead then and step it up a notch. This problem here has parentheses, however, everything inside the parentheses is already done. Same thing with this parenthesis here, it's already done. The only purpose these parentheses are now serving is to remind us that we have to do multiplication. So I am going to do my exponent first. Parentheses have already been finished. So 3 squared, well, an exponent of squared means multiply by itself. So this is 3 squared, which means 3 times, excuse me, 3 times 3, which is 9. We're going to bring everything down. So the minus sign comes down. The 2 times the 5 comes down. And the 4 times the 0 comes down. Not going to try and do too much in my head. I want to make sure that I show all of my steps as I'm doing the early learning for order of operations. Well, I did my exponent. So next in my PEMDAS is multiplication and division. And I have multiplication in this problem twice. So I'll do both of those. 2 times 5 is 10. 4 times 0 is 0. And I'll bring down the -9 and the plus sign as I go through. I'm now going to go ahead and do my addition and subtraction. So 10 minus 9 is 1, plus 0 means the final answer is 1. Well, what about if I have simply an exponent on a fraction? Well, remember, an exponent means to multiply by itself. So this 2 belongs to the entire fraction. So this means 3/4 times 3/4. And if we think back to fractions, to multiply fractions, we multiply straight across the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. And we'll multiply straight across the bottom. 4 times 4 is 16. So if we have an exponent that belongs to a fraction, we just multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction. Let's do an example. I'd like you to write this example down in your notes. And after you write the example down in your notes, pause this video and solve it on your own without my help. Once you're done, resume the video to see the solution. Now that you've resumed the video, let's go through our step-by-step process here. I have multiplication here. I have a fraction, and a fraction means division. This means 12 divided by 3. And I have an exponent. Well, an exponent is what comes first for our order of operations. So I'm going to do 3 squared, which is 9. And I'm just going to bring down each of those other pieces in this problem. I now have multiplication happening here, separated by subtraction, and then I have a fraction here, which is division. So I'm going to multiply those 3 numbers. And 4 times 2 is 8, times 6 is 48. But I had 1 negative. Well, if I multiply with 1 negative, that's going to make this -48. This fraction is 12/3, which means 12 divided by 3, which is 4. But there was a minus sign in front, so that's -4. And then it's +9. Well, now I'm in addition and subtraction. So I'm going to take these 2 and combine them. They're both negative, so they're on the same team. So it makes -52. And then +9. I will now combine these. These are different signs, so I will subtract them and keep the sign of the larger number, and the larger number is 52, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and then when I subtract them, I get negative 43 for the final answer. So if you got negative 43 when you did that on your own, nice job. If you are in the honors class, you should continue on this video. And if you're not, then you are done with this section of order of operations. If you wanted to keep watching, you could. For the honors class, we're going to add an additional component that's going to come into our order of operations. And that's using exponents on negative numbers, because how it's written will impact what we do. I can have negative 5 in parentheses squared, or I can have negative 5 not in parentheses squared. Remember, squared means multiplied by itself. This 2 is touching the parentheses, which means this is negative 5 times itself twice. Well, that's a negative times a negative. This exponent belongs to the 5 and also belongs to the negative because of the parentheses. So because of that, this is going to be a negative times a negative, or 25. If the exponent does not touch parentheses and is only touching the 5, then it means that I have 5 times 5 twice, and the negative sign is going to wait for it in front. So the 5 times the 5 is 25, but the negative sign is waiting for it in front. So the difference is this answer was positive, this answer was negative. So I want you to take a moment to look at these two numbers and come up with your answers based on what I just showed you. This problem here has parentheses, so it's negative 4 times negative 4. This one does not have parentheses, so it's 4 times 4 with a negative waiting in front. This answer is positive 16, and this answer is negative 16. So this is a small little detail when it comes to dealing with exponents on negative numbers. As we go through the order of operations, it's really important to keep track of every detail and don't try and do too much in your head. So that was our video here on order of operations. I hope you found that to be helpful. And then your homework is on the Teams page. So go ahead and get your order of operations homework and start working on that if you wanted to get ahead. I'll take questions in class when we get to our Zoom sessions.